I'm the Deputy Commanding Officer for the 2nd Brigade, 2nd Infantry Division, which is the Stryker Brigade combat team. On behalf of my brigade commander, who's Colonel Barry Huggins, he is currently with the Commanding General 1st Corps with an officer professional development session, so he is unable to attend, so when that happens, he sends his stunt double, and that's me. So I'm very pleased and honored to be here. Of course, AUSA means a lot to most soldiers, certainly the senior officers who understand what the organization is all about and what you do for us each and every day. So it is a great honor for me to be here. I'm just going to go over really the Stryker Brigade capabilities. Now, Puyallup is 2nd Brigade's community connector, as was pointed out before, hence probably why I'm speaking. But you know, Fort Lewis, Joint Base Lewis-McChord, as it's grown, and most of you know, up to now close to 45,000 soldiers. 3 of the brigades, and there are 8 brigades on the installation, are Stryker brigades. And they are the largest brigade combat teams currently in the Army. So I wanted to touch on what does it really consist of, what does it mean. I know a lot of the people here are either former military, retired military, or current military. So if you understand, and please bear with me if you've heard this all before. If not, it's here really to inform you on what we are and then where we're going. And this is unclassified or military jargon, so I'm not going to talk about any classified information such as timetables towards future deployment specifically, but I'm open to questions throughout, and if you want to ask me, I'll try to answer it and keep it unclassified. So, next slide, please. Okay, what I'll talk about, really origin of the SBCT and our capabilities, and go through the organization overview. Next slide. Okay, I omitted a slide I usually left in there, the creation of the Stryker Brigade combat team. It is the newest formation still in the Army, created really in 1999 from a vision statement of then Chief of Staff of the Army, General Eric Shinseki, who decided the heavy forces were too heavy and the light forces were too light, essentially, and wanted to create a medium weight force, and that's what the Stryker Brigade really was created to be and is. Initially, it was called the Interim Brigade Combat Team, and it was supposed to be the blueprint for modularity as the Army moved forward. Subsequently, about 2 or 3 years ago, the Army has decided that the future objective force that they're heading towards is not cost effective, so we're not going to try to get to that, and so the Stryker Brigade will stay for the near term or foreseeable future. All right, so what is it? It's really a formation that has enhanced situational understanding, and in the Army we'll start talking about situational awareness, and that's seeing yourself and seeing others, and then as you start to understand the terrain and the enemy, you start to get situational understanding. And we are designed to help all of those things and obviously be more successful on the battlefield. As you reach through, reach back capability, again, I'm sorry we had a lot of military jargon in here. That's the ability to literally go to higher organizations and get primarily intelligence and pull it down for actionable operations. So we have that integrated in us. And then we are designed to deploy rapidly and to be an early entry force. Not to bore you too much, but as a early entry force would come in, such as the 82nd Airborne or the Ranger Regiment sees an airfield, the next unit in would be a Stryker Brigade. We would air land with our Strykers, and we would expand the lodgement. All right, so we expand out and then bring in heavier forces if needed. All right, so that's the concept on why it was developed now 10 years ago. Next slide, please. Okay. Stryker Brigade is a network-centric. We are digitized. We work on EPLARS radios, extended platform long-range repeating system, but the Stryker vehicle itself is a capabilities platform. Right? It's not a fighting vehicle. Right? So a lot of people, equate it with tanks and Bradleys. That's incorrect. Okay, you're not supposed to be really fighting from the vehicle. It's supposed to get you to a point, allow either the dismounted infantrymen, cavalrymen, engineers, or I'll talk about all the different formations, do their job. And then really, the power is in squads, platoons, and really, I should say, companies. That's where you find all the power, and I'll talk about those so you can see what an infantry company looks like. And then, ultimately, we are well-suited, probably the best-suited force in the Army right now to be an urban force, fight in urban combat. And we do that. This is really the formula on which we try to do. See first, understand first, act first, and finish decisively. So, and I'll talk a little bit more of that later. Next slide. Okay, the Stryker family of vehicles, there are 10 variants, all depicted here. I'll go through each of them. The most prevalent is the infantry carrier variant, and you can see the totals here, 128 within a brigade, and then each of the other variants for specialized needs get fewer and fewer. And again, I'll talk about each of these separately. But again, it's you see some data points there, and I don't want to bore you too much with that. Next slide. Okay, what does a brigade look like? Got to have some icons on here so I can prove to everybody I went to a military school once. Brigade headquarters, 3 infantry battalions, just under 700 people in each, with 77 Strykers. And I'll break that down a little bit further later on. A cavalry reconnaissance squadron, which is formerly known as the Reconnaissance Surveillance Target Acquisition Squadron, just under 500 guys and 61 Strykers. I have a field artillery battalion with M777 155 millimeter howitzers. They are towed. There are 18 of them, and they just have under 500 people. The brigade support battalion, which essentially, once we go to the field, splits out most of their people to support these 5 organizations. And then we have separate companies, an anti-tank company with 11 Strykers, the headquarters for the brigade, where that's where the staff is, a military intelligence company, an engineer, sappers engineer company with 13 Strykers, and then a signal company. And again, I'll talk about all that. So all together, just over 4,200 soldiers, 322 Strykers, and 18 howitzers. So pretty powerful force. Next slide. Just as a quick comparison between the 3 types of brigade combat teams currently in the Army. Heavy brigade combat team, tanks and Bradleys. Infantry brigade combat team, light infantry, airborne, air assault, any of the 3. And then the Stryker brigade combat team. And here's your comparison thing, just so you see, when you talk about infantry squads, Stryker Brigade's got 81 compared to our sister brigades, much larger. We have more snipers, in fact, 3 times as many. We don't have as many recon squads, but pretty close. The mobile gun system, we have 27 of them. Obviously, these are tanks and an HBCT, so they outrun us, which is good. That's what they're supposed to be. Javelins are handheld anti-tank weapon system. We have by far the most of those, 121. We do have a lot more mortar systems, 120 millimeter mortars, and howitzers. We have a few more than everybody. All said, we have a lot more combat vehicles, 322 compared to 132 in a heavy brigade combat team. So we think we bring the best of both the other 2 formations, and that's why we think we're probably one of the most called upon formations in the Army right now. Next slide. Okay, this is an infantry battalion. Again, not to bore you all too much. Battalion headquarters. This is the headquarters company, which is fairly standard. They have a scout platoon. This is the commander's TAC, or tactical assault, and then mortar platoon, medics, and then retrans, so some signal guys, and they're in a sniper section as well. Normally they're tied in with the scouts. And then the infantry company itself, and I'll go next slide. What that looks like, 170 guys. This is the first real combined arms formation within the brigade at the lowest level. By that, you have 3 rifle platoons, each of 44 guys, pretty powerful. Ramp comes down, there's 10 guys coming out, 9 or 10 if we're at full strength. Then you have the mobile gun system, and this is why it's a 105 millimeter smoothbore cannon. Actually, it's very similar to, if you're familiar with the M60 tank, that's the exact same cannon. Made by General Dynamics, like all the rest of them. And 120 millimeter mortars, as well as 60 millimeter mortar that are dismounted. They have their snipers, fire support vehicle, and then their headquarters for the company commander and XL. 20 Strykers total. Pretty powerful organization. It can bring a lot of troops to a point very quickly. So this is really the power of a Stryker Brigade. Next slide. Switching to the cavalry squadron, something that's near and dear to my heart. Of course, I am a cavalryman, and had to say that General Cole would get mad at me if I didn't.
Right there.
Actually, it's set up similar to the infantry battalions that they have the same officer and NCO structure for the most part, less cavalrymen on the ground. In the headquarters, you have mortars and, your medics and retrans, and then you have 3 recce troops, and I'll talk about them in a second. And then you have this interesting formation called the surveillance troop, where you have the Shadow unmanned aerial vehicle, or UAV. Prophet is a signal intelligence collecting system, and then the nuclear, biological, chemical reconnaissance variant here in the NBC Recon platoon. Next slide. Into the recce troop itself. Again, 3 platoons of 4 Strykers each, and then they also have mortars, organic fire support, and then the troop commander. So a little smaller than the infantry, or actually a lot smaller, with 80, just under 90, and the infantry company's got 170. So, but again, different missions. They're out with the eyes and ears of the commander to find information and allow them to move the infantry to find, fix, and finish. Next slide. Moving on to the artillery battalion. Again, it's a towed howitzer, M777. Fairly new in the Army, very good. So they're set up in their headquarters. They got counter fire radar systems, Q36 and 37, meteorological section, their medics and their retrans, and then each of the firing batteries is set up with 6 times 3 platoons. So pretty good. One of the newest capabilities is the M777 now can fire a GPS-guided Excalibur precision mission. So you start talking about smart munitions, and so it can do that, and that's a great capability for the commander. Next slide. And then the support battalion, obviously, they do all of our classes of supply to do our logistical support, and they're set up in 4 companies. Their headquarters, which runs really the cooks, are all in there, and they all get farmed out to all the battalions. And then you have your headquarters, Alpha Company, which is your distribution company, and they run all the logistical supply convoys. And then the maintenance company, and again, all these maintenance teams get split out and sent off to all the infantry, cavalry, and artillery battalions. And then Charlie Company, which is the medical company. They sit back in our what we call level 2, where the doctor, dentist, and surgical teams are at within the brigade. Next slide. Anti-tank company. They have the anti-tank guided missile variant Stryker. They are primarily really designed to be a bunker buster. They go in, create a breach within a fortification for the infantry to go and seize. So that is the primary reason. They are obviously an anti-tank. Next slide. Engineer company. 3 platoons of sappers and 1 maneuver and support platoon. They are our mobility and counter mobility force. They do route clearance primarily and in marking of obstacles. They have limited capability to do, well, they can do breaching, but normally we need reinforcements if we're coming up into any large obstacle belts. Next slide. And then military intelligence company. These guys are really usually the unsung heroes, guys and gals. They sit back, collect all the information, analyze it, and then really turn it into intelligence. So as good as a brigade can be, really depends on these guys for the most part, especially in a counterinsurgency fight. So they have all the different types of intelligence, human intelligence, that's literally talking with people, signal intelligence, and then imagery intelligence. So they work through all those, fuse everything for the brigade commander, and really should drive all the operations if you're doing it correctly. Next slide. And then finally, the signal company. Really what they're looking at, for the most part, we look at signal in two areas. It's we call upper TI, technical information, and lower TI. Upper is satellite communications for the most part. Right, so they use a thing called the Joint Network Node, or JNN, and it's KU band satellite. I don't want to bore you way too much, but it just shoots up information onto a satellite, obviously, and feeds what would be our internet systems, and be it classified or unclassified systems. And then our lower TIs, they also help manage, and that's our GPS system primarily. We call it FPCB2. That's Force 21 Battle Command Brigade and below. So it is, if you have a GPS in your car, it's basically the same thing, except we can see all of our friendly units too. So we have a little blue icon, so you can see yourself where you are, but you see everybody else as well. It's pretty good system. Next slide. All right, moving on into the different types of variants. This is the infantry carrier variant. Again, that's the most prominent one in the brigade. 130 of them. Most have. What are we doing, dying here? The most have. Well, all of them have the same chassis. All right, so it is helps with spare parts. That's part of the design of the Stryker vehicle itself. And then most are equipped with either a 50 caliber machine gun or Mark 19, which is a 40 millimeter grenade launcher. So either or. In each platoon, there will be 2 of each weapon systems. Again, you can read through all the characteristics. Stryker is, if you've never seen them, fairly relatively quiet combat vehicle, and can go in excess of, I'll say, at 70 miles an hour, 60 miles an hour, as they say, sometimes 60. But it means we can move very quickly, and in the operational theater, we can be retasked into a different area 100 miles away pretty quickly, and self-supporting also. Next slide. The mobile gun system is the one that essentially looks like a tank, and everybody likes to see that one. There are 29 of them. They are resident in the infantry companies. It's a pretty good piece of equipment. If you're really interested in tanks and that, it fires a HEP round, high explosive plastic round, a HEAT, which is a high explosive anti-tank, and then it has a KE, a kinetic energy round. So there's 3 types, and it's a 3-man crew, has an autoloader, pretty interesting. Next slide. Command variant, CV. Again, there's 28. This is where the commanders and operations officers normally ride in to control the higher formation. So it's found at the brigade and the battalion levels. It essentially is like a little mobile tactical operations center. Has all these capabilities that do command and control. To include long-range radios, satellite radios, or high-frequency HF radios. So pretty good capability. I could do PowerPoint on my Stryker, my command variant, and send it to back to my headquarters if that's what I wanted to do, work on a plan while I'm out on an operation. So that's pretty good capability. Next slide. Medical evacuation bearing. This is probably the most sought after Stryker in the Army because it's a really good ambulance. It can carry 4 litters and 6 ambulatory patients, so if need be. And unfortunately, it's been proven time and time again, but it is a very good medical evacuation vehicle. Next one. And then the anti-tank guided missile, I talked about it very briefly earlier. It fires TOW 2 family of missiles, and it's pretty good. There are a limited number. There's only 10. They are all in the anti-tank company, but it's a good vehicle. Next slide. The mortar carrier. You can see the slide. The mortar is it's embedded. It's integrated in the system. It's on a carrier cell inside. It's a 120 millimeter mortar. You have the ability, once you stop, if you have your firing data set, you can fire within seconds. It's very accurate. This is probably doesn't get utilized all that much, that often anymore, which is good, I guess. But when it is used, it's very effective. So it's a great piece of kit. Next slide. All right, that's basics on the general capabilities. What I didn't talk about was 2nd Brigade's scheduling. Obviously, I'm open to any questions. Currently, 2nd Brigade was 5th Brigade, renamed, was in Afghanistan, and now we're preparing for future deployments. Just came back last month from Yakima, where we did our company size combined arms live fires. We're very successful, and now we prepare our next major training event. Will be at the National Training Center in November, which could or could not be a mission rehearsal exercise, so we'll see. Things are going very well in 2nd Brigade. It is a very fast-moving train for us as far as training. We have a lot of things to accomplish in a relatively short time. So that really concludes my formal portion of the brief, and I'm open to any questions at present. Or not.